Hello guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan and today I'm going to be ranking the 10 most hyped prospects since Sidney Crosby. Now since Sidney Crosby's draft, the 2005 draft, is going to turn 15 years old next year, I thought I'd look at the 10 most hyped prospects since then. But which prospects have been the most hyped since Sidney Crosby and how have they all panned out so far? Watch till the end and of course subscribe if you're new. Now for some clarification before we get into this is my ranking of the most hyped players, not the best prospects since Sidney Crosby. Of course, if I did the best prospects, Nail Yakupov wouldn't even touch this list. These are the guys who have the most hype to their name, and some of these guys being compared to Sidney Crosby in their draft year. Now we can officially get into my top 10, and sitting at my 10th most hyped prospect spot, I'm gonna go with Aaron Ekblad. Now, Aaron Ekblad was the first overall pick in 2014, and he wasn't looked at as a generational prospect, but a pretty good one. Now, Ekblad, of course, sitting at 23 years old now with the Florida Panthers, has been somewhat successful, hasn't been this generational or even top 10 defenseman, and you could say that it's a fail at that respect. But the 2014 draft isn't looking all that amazing, especially compared to 2015. But Aaron Ekblad is still a pretty solid defenseman. And with Florida right now, easily their best one. And obviously there was a ton of hype to his name. He is in the top 10 after all, but I think it was definitely lower than some other prospects. Being a Canadian defenseman, though, had a lot of hype to him. Even though he was less than a point per game in the OHL in his draft year, he still was the first overall pick and the guy at that point. And I think there's been much better players come out of the 2014 draft, but nonetheless, the hype train was pretty big for Ekblad, and he was looked at as one of the best, if not the best, young defenseman at his time. Now, going to my 9th most hyped prospect since Sidney Crosby, I'm now going to go to a good old American kid in Jack Eichel. Now, Jack Eichel was the second overall pick back in 2015, and he has definitely lived up to expectation. Now, the thing is, being at number 9, I think he had an insane draft year, but of course he was overshadowed by Connor McDavid in that 2015 draft, and that was a reason why he didn't go first overall. I think Jack Eichel would have gone number 1 in 2014, 2013, 2012, 2011. The list goes down and down because his draft year was just insane. Now, in his draft year in 2015 with Boston U, he played 40 games in the NCAA, 26 goals, 45 assists for 71 points. I mean, when I was just getting into hockey, that was his season there, and I didn't really realize how good that was. 71 points in 40 games for a draft-eligible player is absolutely insane. And now he's starting to finally live up to expectation. And again, the reason he's only at number 9 is because the McDavid hype being overshadowed just a little bit, but the hype that he did receive was 100% deserved, and now he's turning into that franchise player and top 10 player that we all dreamed he would be. Now, going on to my 8th most hyped prospect since Sidney Crosby, we're now going to go on to Nail Yakupov. Now, of course, the first overall pick in 2012 has not had that successful of an NHL career. And let's just say the Nail hype train was pretty large. Now, compared to Jack Eichel and Aaron Ekblad, it's a pretty sizable difference. The hype train for Yak failed for Nail was at an all-time high in 2012. And unfortunately, the way it went, it wasn't really deserved, but the kid did have talent and did have a pretty good OHL season. And in his draft year season with Sarnia, he was pretty solid. In 42 OHL games, got 69 points. Pretty nice, I must say. And the skill was definitely there. Of course, drafted first overall by Edmonton, it just never really seemed to work out. The work ethic issues, the motivation issues, he did have the talent, but it just never really came all together. He went to St. Louis, went to Colorado, and is now just a pretty average KHL player doing his thing in Russia. But the disappointment will make him one of the biggest busts of all time. The hype was there, and of course, the disappointment was there too. Now, going on to my 7th most hyped prospect since Sidney Crosby, now I'm going to go on to the first overall pick in the next year's draft, that being Nathan MacKinnon. And Nathan MacKinnon wasn't as hyped as some other first overall picks of the decade, but obviously still turned out pretty good. Now, in his draft year, he was freaking insane. In 44 QMJHL games, he got 75 points. Not bad whatsoever. And the hype train was very big for MacKinnon as well. It was originally going to be Seth Jones as the first overall pick, and that's the reason why I didn't think it was that big. And his QMJHL season, at least points-wise, wasn't too groundbreaking, but the player obviously was deserving of the first overall pick and is one of the best players in the NHL today. Now moving on to my sixth most hyped prospect since Sidney Crosby, just a couple of years after Sidney Crosby's draft, going on to Steven Stamkos. Now the first overall pick in 2008 was the deserved first overall pick. He had an insane OHL season and the hype was 100% there. It was very big, but not as big as some others, obviously higher on the list, but it still was there. In his last season when starting in the OHL's draft year, he played 61 games and got 105 points. Not bad whatsoever. And it's kind of weird to put Stamkos only number 6 in this list, right? Because with that amazing OHL season and a great World Juniors that he had, the hype was 100% there, and it was one of the biggest of the last couple of decades. But unfortunately, not as high as some others. But of course, Steven Stamkos, without the injuries, is one of the best players in the NHL, and it's been that way since he stepped into the NHL. Now, going to the first prospect besides Jack Eichel that I vividly remember the hype about, going to another defenseman, and at number 5, I have Rasmus Dahlin. Now, Dahlin, of course, the first overall pick in the 2018 draft, had an amazing draft year season, and the hype was at an all-time high, much more than Ekblad, and it's not even really close. A Swedish defenseman having so many good games in the SHL, the hype was there, and for the Buffalo Sabres, they were looking to get one of the best defenseman prospects of all time. And the hype was even more insane when you consider how many great prospects were in that 2018 draft. It was looking to be one of the best drafts of all time, on top of Andrei Svechnikov, who was looked at as a potential first overall pick a year before the draft. But Dahlin came in, had an amazing SHL season, and the hype train just came from there. And obviously his NHL career hasn't been amazing thus far, but it still is too early to tell. He's 19 years of age, so I'll give him a little bit of a break. And now on to the fourth prospect, the most hyped since Sidney Crosby. I'm going to go with American-born stud Auston Matthews. Now, back in the 2016 draft, this was really the first year that I really started getting into prospects. Not just casually watching the NHL draft, but like, okay, that Connor McDavid kid is pretty good, but actually paying attention to them. And of course, Auston Matthews being the first overall pick in 2016, being an American-born kid, I obviously was very excited, as was pretty much everybody else about him. Of course, I think it was a little bit lesser so than it probably should have been, because he was playing in Switzerland, but for a first overall pick, I think he's been one of the most hyped of the decade, and for Leafs fans, after they got that first overall pick, the hype was just extraordinary from there. Now, going on to my third most hyped prospect since Sidney Crosby, I'm going to give the nod to American stud Patrick Kane. Now, Patrick Kane, obviously the first overall pick in the 2007 NHL draft, has had all the expectations in the world as an American-born prospect, but has lived up to it. He sits at 31 years of age right now, which is crazy to think about, but Patrick Kane has gotten all the accolades, 3 Stanley Cups, Art Ross Trophy, anything you could really think of besides that gold medal in the USA Olympics, which still pains me. But either way, Patrick Kane has had a heck of an NHL career, has lived up to those expectations, and he wasn't compared to Sidney Crosby, obviously, completely different players. But Patrick Kane is a different player, but still one of the best players in the past decade, if not the best, besides Crosby. And now going on to the second most hyped prospect since Sidney Crosby. Now going on to the prospect who had all the hype in the world, that being John Tavares. Now, Tavares, being the first overall pick in 2009, was honestly one of the most hyped prospects of all time. He really was that good. Now, John Tavares was one of those prospects that you would have heard about him at age 15. He was that worldwide and that well known. In his first OHL season, he got 77 points in 65 games. Then in his second OHL season, had 134 points in 69 games. Then I got 118. And then this draft year just got over 100 points. But he was also traded to another team as well. But the hype train for John Tavares was unreal. You couldn't go around any block in the OHL scene and not hear about John Tavares because he was the big name and he was the big fish. Obviously went first overall in 2009 as he should have, and has had the amazing career that pretty much everybody expected. And now, going on to number 1. In my opinion, the most hyped up prospect since Sidney Crosby, and maybe the most hyped prospect of all time, that being Connor McDavid. Now, of course, McDavid, the 22-year-old center, Edmonton Oilers' own, is the best player in the NHL today. But back in 2015, he was the hockey scene. He was the hockey prospect scene, and he was the guy. It was pretty much confirmed that, like, multiple teams were trying to tank for him and get that first overall pick. Looking at Buffalo, who ended up getting Jack Eichel, which is not bad whatsoever, but they were heavily on McDavid. And the scene is definitely interesting because at that time the internet was obviously almost in everybody's home. Everybody was trying to look up highlights of the guy, and he was a well-known face before he even stepped into the NHL. He was a well-known guy at like 15 years old in the OHL. He was that well-known. And I think Sidney Crosby, maybe Gretzky, and Lemieux probably have the more hype to their name, potentially, but I think more people knew about McDavid just because of the internet, because of all the access that people had. McDavid was the next generational face, and he, to be honest, was looked at as next Sidney Crosby, and right now, he's been better than Sidney Crosby in his NHL career thus far. And I think Crosby, Lemieux, Gretzky take the cake for the most hyped up prospects, but in terms of, again, how many people knew about McDavid and wanted McDavid, I think he was the most wanted prospect of all time. And again, when you look at how good he was, it makes a lot of sense. Right now, he's the best player in the NHL, and that won't change anytime soon. But of course, with this ranking video, I need to hear y'all's thoughts down those comments down below. Let me know, what do you think about my 10 most hyped players since Crosby? Let me know what you agree and disagree with as well. And who do you think was the most hyped up since Crosby, besides a guy like, and obviously, Connor McDavid? Was it MacKinnon? Was it Stamkos? Was it Tavares? Was it Matthews? Let me know all your thoughts down those comments down below. But if y'all want some more Grav videos just like this one, y'all should click on this card right here, where I rank the best players from every NHL team so far this season. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below your thoughts on this video, what you agree and disagree with as well. Share this video with your friends, get the word out there, because the Grav Gang is almost at 9K subscribers, my boys. My name is Nathan, and I'll see y'all in the next video or stream. Goodbye.